Okay, so hello everybody, good morning. Welcome back to eduphoreias, the Hindu analysis series. And here we are starting with the first page of the Hindu. Fine. As we discussed yesterday also. So I am going page by page in order to let you know, especially to the beginners, the freshers, those who are not habitual of reading the newspapers, or those who find it very boring or difficult one. So I am just using this method in order to better make you understand the thing that which news is important and what to read from which pages. Fine, on different pages. The best friend, always remember, the best guide on this path would be your GS syllabus, but for the time being you can go through GS syllabus, at the same time you can use this method in order to better have the in order to have the clarity of the things that what to read and what not to read. Fine. So let us start with the first page. This is the first page, Hindu, 3rd of June. Fine. Okay. So 17 killed in Odisha train accident. This is a major mishappening that took place yesterday's night. Of course, this must not have happened, but it has happened now, and 3 trains collided with each other. So we'll be tracking this news, and this news is news for the time being, but this is a governance issue or the policy measures only when we'll be coming across the reports, the inquiry reports, the major reports which would be which would be available in the public after few let us say months, because of course the ministry is going to constitute the committee to find out where exactly was the what the problems or where actually we lacked. Fine. So this much is relevant from what happened. As this progresses, then we will keep a tap on this, and further moving ahead, there are certain things. See, on this first page, not much relevant things here for the day. Fine. So we'll be moving ahead. Okay, let us go page by page. Let us see, is there anything relevant for us on the page number 2? So don't think so. Yeah, these are just the all the masalas which we actually don't need here, and not to focus on such things. But yes, as an aware citizen, you need to be aware what's happening around you, especially the local news. Like for example, if we are living in Chandigarh, so we must be aware that what's happening around the Tri-City. Fine. This is not something you can skip on. At least surrounding की हमें awareness होनी ही चाहिए. Fine. Whether it's relevant for exam or not. So no monsoon rate. Of course, we can move forward to the next pages. Again, it's a local news. Let us scroll down. Let us move to the next page. Okay. Again, it's a local news from the states. Not that relevant here. Again, kind of masalas only. Okay. Okay. That's why I'm moving to the next pages, because I didn't find much relevant things here. Okay. Okay. This news might be important, of course, may be important. For, suppose Chhatrapati Shivaji work continues to be relevant, says Prime Minister, and because yesterday happened to be the 350th anniversary of the Chhatrapati Shivaji. Fine, 350th. So of course this could be relevant. For example, Mr. Modi said that the country vision of Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat encompassed the ideals of Shivaji. Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat. Even he used to believe in such things. Fine. That of course Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat, the basic philosophy of Shivaji. So of course he was the great believer of this thing. So these are the things how we can interrelate the things, especially in the history part. Where we study about the great Marathas. So there comes the role of. So this is how UPSC asks the question. We say that for example, in prelims we get some question, or even in mains, for example, we are getting something related to Marathas empire. So where was the context? So context is this: something has happened in the background recently, that we celebrated 350th, we marked the 350th birth anniversary of the great legend, you can say Shivaji. Fine. So that's why this was in news. That's why UPSC might ask question either in, let us say, prelims, even in mains as well, from the Marathas Empire. Fine. So this could be a passing reference for us, a context for us as far as exam is concerned. Let us move to the next pages. Okay. 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 Okay, so we'll be beginning our discussion for the day with the editorial page of the Hindu, that is page number 8, and from here onwards we'll be taking topic wise. Fine. So let us take first topic, good and bad. It's about AI. So India needs to harness the benefits of AI, artificial intelligence, while avoiding adverse effects. Let me firstly give you a snapshot about this article. So this article talks about basically the regenerative AIs. For example, you might have come across chat GPTs kind of things. Fine. They are called regenerative AI, regenerative artificial intelligence, because they regenerate, or they are not regenerative but generative in fact. So generative means they are generating the text. For example, if you ask something, put some question, even you can ask to write an essay on the topic, so you get the full-fledged essay. So this is what they are creating or generating on on demand. So they are called generative AIs. Fine. For example, chat GPT. Fine. They create the text, they create the images and so on. Fine. So this article, particularly this is smaller one at the left hand side, is all about generative AIs, artificial intelligence. Fine. So here the author, here it is mentioned that India needs to harness the benefits of AI. Of course, if something is beneficial for us, something is good for us, we need to harness the benefit of that particular thing. Here is artificial intelligence, and at the same time we need to avoid the adverse effects or the disadvantages or the negative things associated with that particular technology, isn't it? So let us dwell more in this the detail. So firstly, here it has been very beautifully defined what exactly is the generative AI. So generative artificial intelligence is AI that can create new data. Artificial intelligence is AI that can create new data. So this is called generative artificial intelligence, which can generate for you or can create for you new sets of data. For example, you are asking some questions, getting answers in reply. So it is generating text or the answers for you. Fine. On the similar lines, as I gave the example of essays as well. So there are many instances of generative AI in the world today, most commonly used to. So what is the utility of these generative AIs? So they are most commonly used to generate text, images and code in response to users' requests. As I said, that if you are asking to your AI tool or chat GPT to write essay for you, it can write essay for you. Fine. So this is how, but it's on demand or response to users' request. Even if they are capable of more, fine, that they are capable of more, then actually we are utilizing their you can say the application or their utility. So their widespread adoption really embellished their capabilities. Of course, widespread adoption embellished their capabilities, leading to awe then worry. Fine. OpenAI chat GPT, this was the example I was quoting, that OpenAI chat GPT, AI chat GPT, one of the example, or chatbot mimics intelligence very well. Fine. So these are the that's why they are called artificial intelligence, because they mimic the intelligence of humans or the humans' intelligence very well. Fine. So this is why they are labeled as artificial intelligence and not just intelligence. It has become synonymous with the abilities of generative AI at large. Of course, that's what we are talking about. So the issue here is, in the last few years, AI models backed by neural networks trained on very large data sets and with access to sufficient computing power have been used to do good, such as finding new antibiotics. So they has been used to do something good, and for example, you can give refer this. How? So their application now, as in the beginning lines we said that we need to harness the beneficial impact. So of course everything has both the positive sides as well as the negative sides, the advantages alongside the disadvantages. So whatever advantages generative AI providing to us, we need to harness it and use to do good, such as finding new antibiotics. Of course, their application has been there in finding the new antibiotics as well, alloys of some metals, let us say, and alloys as well, for clever entertainment and cultural activities. So this can be used for these purposes as well, for clever entertainment and even cultural activities. Fine. So these are the applications. Further moving ahead, you can see that alongside the advantages comes the disadvantages as well. Fine. Or pose certain risks as well. Fine. So what are the risks? You might be aware that many of the world's major, including the great Tesla, or you can say the Twitter chairman, fine, Tesla chairman alongside Elon Musk. So they came up with you can say a warning statement to the world, especially dealing with the robotics and AIs. Fine. So what is this warning statement, and what is that statement? Let us go into that. So, but it has caught attention most notably with its ability to falsify data. So this is a negative thing here. That disadvantage is that it also falsifies the data. It doesn't give you the correct facts or the data. Fine. The world is past beyond able to reliably. Now we have already taken the step, or we have moved beyond differentiating between the good and the bad of these generative AIs. Fine. Further, this and other development led a prominent group of AI, of course that's what I was referring to, that this concern has led a prominent group of AI pioneers to draft a single sentence and alarmist statement. Now what exactly is this alarmist statement? So mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemic and nuclear war. So you can see how you can see how outrightly penned this statement is. They are saying that AI can pose as great challenge as pandemic has posed before us, or even it can pose similar challenges to the challenges that might be like nuclear wars. So they have associated the risk that actually AI is posing with with pandemic as well as the nuclear wars. Fine. So you can understand this, the type of risk they are referring to. Some specific concerns की अगर हम बात करें, enumerated in other communiques are worth taking seriously. However, now the issue is these all things are very much relevant to what they are saying. However, the instructability of the inner working of the AI models, their use of copyright data, regard for human dignity, privacy, and protections from falsifying information. All these things need to be taken into account before actually using them at a wider scale. Fine. What are the things? The inner workings of the AI models, their use of copyrighted data, regard for human dignity and privacy. Of course, this is very, very important thing, human dignity and privacy, and protections from falsifying information, that we actually get the correct facts and figures. Fine, and not the falsified one. Otherwise, it will create a great havoc at the level of society, misinformation or disinformation problems. Fine. Okay. Moving further, the models being developed and used today are not mandated to tick these boxes. Okay. So here is the warning for us that the current model of generative AIs are not mandated to tick all these boxes that we are referring to, the above, that is privacy and all, and falsifying of data. So all these sets of copyright data, using of copyright data, or how they are actually working, the inner working mechanism of AI tools. So there has not been that much pervasive, that much open, or that much that much not in the public domain, you can say, but still a restricted application is restricted information we have as far as this AI or the, you can say, generative AI is concerned. Fine. So this again pose a challenge for us, because the models being developed and used today are not mandated to tick all these boxes that we have just underlined related to dignity, privacy, falsification of data, alongside their own sets of inner working mechanism. Fine. Even there is no way to understand the risk they pose. Okay, let us assume that currently we are not in position to understand exactly that what risk they pose. So what can we do? What steps we can do? So even at a point when the computational resources required to run AI models in full coincidence with that available in consumer electronics. So let us say, for example, AI has been used in everything from mobile phones to computers to televisions, find everything, every single electronic gadgets you can say is using the AI in its in its software, in the form of softwares. So of course we cannot deny or refute this thing that computational resources required to run AI models in full coincide with that available in consumer electronics. So of course they are being used in or coinciding with the current electronic equipments available in the market or this field, consumer electronics. So the world will need to at least rolling policies. So if there is this much of application of such AI, then and considering the downside risks as well on the one hand and the other beneficial sides as well, both sides plus and minus. So what could be the way forward? What could be the way forward? Remember, if there is something, any issue or risk downside related to that particular thing, it's not like we cannot stop its application, we cannot use stop using it. Fine, this will be an extreme step, but how we can mitigate the problem or risk associated with that particular tool or technology is the way forward only. Fine. So let us see what could be the way forward mentioned here. So the world will need at least rolling policy that keep the door open for democratic institutions. Fine. So the what world needs today, at least the rolling policies. Let us start with some policy formulations or roll out the policies that keep the door open for democratic institutions. Fine. For example, let us say election commission. So the use of this AI tool in a voting process, of course, but this should come under the election commission because it's a democratic institution, a constitutional institution which should govern the use of the AI in election process. Fine. To slam the brakes on dangerous enterprises, of course, at this time, so that nobody can let us say hack the election process or nobody can falsify the votes. Fine, or there doesn't arise the situation of let us say fake votes. Fine. So at this time the Indian government, so what exactly the Indian government need to do, should proactively launch and maintain an open source AI risk profile. Fine. So here we need to prepare and launch and proactively launch and maintain an open source AI risk profile. Now what is this? So open source, I hope you understand, open source is something, a software let us say, which is easily accessible. Fine, there are certain codes, you can change those sets of codes, you can amend the codes. Fine, that is easily accessible. For example, during corona we had this app for tracking the how much whether you have contracted the corona or not, or how much there are patients in your surroundings. So of course that was an open source based platform. So this is how there you can make changes, you can make changes in the codes. So open source AI risk profiles set up sandbox. Now what are sandbox? So sandbox, remember, are basically the isolated, you can say, or closed door application or the testing of that particular platform or the application. Fine, before the final application at a wider scale. Fine, firstly we just try to check it out or test in a closed isolated environment that whether it would be useful for using at a wider scale or not. So this is called sandbox testing basically. Fine, a closed door testing you can say, or further, high risk AI models promote the development of explainable AI, define scenarios of intervention. This is very, very important, that where actually we or the government can intervene and keep a watchful eye. So something which is not definite for let us say which is still in its evolving phase or in its beginning phase, the best medicine always recommended is to be watchful of that thing, keep an eye on that thing, so that you can take the measures along the way, on the way, while being watchful for the same. Okay, so inaction is just not, so this is very, very a fine line, that inaction is just not an option. We'll have to act, because inaction is not is just not an option. It could not be like, okay, we'll see to it that how the thing is going to evolve in future. No, this is the right time to act, because inaction is nowhere an option. Fine. Apart from the possibility of adverse consequences, of course, we have discussed till now the adverse consequences as well. It could render India missing the harnessing AI for good buzz, of course. So, if we will be some let us say if we will be pessimistic, or if we won't be coming forthcoming with the right policies and the regulations. So, of course, somewhere we are going to miss this AI buzz, fine, down the line. Okay. So, this is all about, I hope you understood this article, the smaller one, but a very, you can say, useful one as far as your GS3 technology topic is concerned. So, a evolving concept, the generative AI, fine, generative artificial intelligence, for example, like ChatGPT, fine. So, this is a very good piece of article. You can have a look to it. Alongside, you can use some things from here in your GS3 mains paper as well. Fine. For prelims, what is important from this article is what exactly is the generative AI and what are the applications, whether they run on open, they can run on open source platform, what exactly is the sandbox testing. So, these are the informations which are relevant for prelims exam, but as a whole article, policy measures and all, what India can do, what are the benefits. So, all this related to your GS mains paper 3, where we talk about technology, science and tech. Okay, especially the technology part, the application part of science. Okay, so let us move forward to the second article that we will be taking up from this editorial page only, and this is again related to GS3, you can say trade and economics, of course, international trade particularly. So, this will form the part of your GS3 again. Even the first topic AI was related to your GS3, there you have this economy and technology, fine. So, GS3 here we will be talking about international trade and carbon problem, international trade vis-a-vis carbon problem. So, what this article is all about, let me first brief you. So, this article is all about a policy measure, you can say, of EU, that is we call it CBM. What is CBM exactly? It's a carbon border adjustment, let us say, mechanism. This is a carbon border adjustment mechanism with which the EU came, and what is under this? So, under carbon border adjustment mechanism, if some country, let us say India, exports some goods to, let us say Europe or Germany particularly, let us take one on one this country, because EU is a group of 28 nations, So, let us say India exporting something, some product to Germany which involves carbon emission, that product basically has been produced in an industry which actually emits carbon, fine, but that same product has been is being produced in EU with the help of green sets of technology, let us say, and not in the carbon emission emitting industry. So, let us say that if India is something emitting carbon and sending that product or exporting that product to Germany, Germany would be imposing what? Levy, you can say a kind of tax or the tariff, we call it carbon border adjustment mechanism, fine, because since their product, the origin of that product is from a carbon emission industry that is entering to a country which is producing the same product not in the carbon emitting industry, but let us say with the use of renewable source of energy or green technology, green tech, let us say. So, of course, so this is the parity, that is the difference between the two, one sets of country producing the same product with the carbon emission and the other with the sets of green technology or renewable energy. So, of course, the deviation between the two would be matched by, or this gap will be bridged by imposing certain sets of green tax, let us say, or carbon border adjustment mechanism or carbon border adjustment tax. Fine, I hope the things are clear to you. Fine, let us further go into the detail related to this topic. So, what exactly is the context? So, the European Union key climate law, okay, EU's key climate law, CBM. So, this has been labeled as EU's key climate law, fine, CBM. Has spooked India. Spooked is something which has frightened, actually, fine. Spooked is something which has frightened you. So, this has frightened India. Why so? Why India is worrisome related to or worried about this particular carbon based border adjustment mechanism, let me give you another example to explain the same this theme mechanism. Let us say there is a provision of phytosanitary measures or phytosanitary protection measures under the WTO this sets of principles, under which the EU used to impose this phytosanitary measure on the India's exports of, let us say, mangoes, because they say what mangoes you said actually is being ripened by using certain set of chemicals which we don't allow. So at times India has to, Indian ships had to return with the loads of mangoes. So this has been happened in the past. This can happen again in the at present. This can happen, and it can happen also in the future. So that's why we are very much worried about this. Fine, because of course every country has the right to impose certain set of measures. Fine, so we cannot, but we need to get the level playing field, that how we can negotiate with the EU, because we are currently in the process of negotiating foreign trade agreement with the EU. Fine, so let us get into this article first. So this is frightened India. New Delhi fears, what exactly is our fears? That CBM will cripple the export of its carbon intensive product to the EU. Okay, so this is our largely the fear. This is our fear that CBM will cripple the export of our carbon intensive products to the EU. Of course, the products which are producing with the help of carbon, or the carbon intensive industry producing the carbon intensive industries. So of course, this can cripple the export of our carbon intensive products to the EU. This is simple one. While India exports may be limited to aluminium, so our exports to EU is basically in aluminium, iron, steel, and affect only 1.8% of its total exports to EU, let us say, but this 1.8% is not a small figure. CBM has been protectionist and discriminatory. This has been labeled as protectionist and discriminatory policy tool. There is also talk of challenging the CBM at WTO dispute settlement body. So of course, if some country has certain reservation related to this particular policy measure, of course they have the right to challenge the same at the WTO dispute settlement level platform. So this debate brings to the forefront the interlinkages between the trade and the environment. Of course, this is very important, that here the debate is all about the international trade and the environmental preservation or conservation. Fine. While the international trade regime allows country to adopt unilateral measures, indeed this allows, for safeguarding the environmental protection should not become a smoke screen or a tool for trade protectionism. Fine. So the other way around cannot be said to be correct, that under the guise of environmental protection, you cannot impose anything which is which might go against the WTO rules. Fine, or which might go against a particular country's interest. So environmental protection should not become a smoke screen for trade protectionism. Okay, moving ahead, what is the little bit the background of CBM, carbon border adjustment mechanism. So what exactly is a CBM? So in 2005, EU comes with a set of, you can say, this policy, and this was called ETS, emission trading system. Fine. EU came up in 2005 with the emission trading system, we call it ETS. Now this ETS is in the fourth stage. Fine, and the ETS is a market-based mechanism that aims at reducing greenhouse emissions by allowing bodies emitting greenhouse gases to buy and sell these emissions among themselves. So it's a form of, you can say, simply the carbon market. What we do in carbon market, we basically sell the carbon credits. Fine, if you are emitting less of carbon than stipulated or mandated, then of course you will be having more of carbon credit. So you can exchange or trade this carbon credit with the other player, or let us say industry which has emitted more, means their the carbon their carbon, this credit are not in plus but in minus. Fine. So this is how the trading, because trading takes place between two sets of thing, party of course. So both way you will have to have the two parties, एक जिसके पास ज़्यादा है in surplus and the other which has less in, which is not being able to meet the stipulated target or mandated target. So of course this is how this is, you can say, labeled CBM could be, or ETS could be labeled as one of the sets of or mechanism or one of the parts of carbon market. However, the EU's concern is that while it has mechanism for its domestic industries, emissions embedded in product imported from other countries may not be priced in a similar way due to the lack of stringent policy, due to less stringent policy in those countries. Yes, so what exactly, we are not worried about this, but even the EU itself is worried about this. And what is the, exactly the point of worry for this EU as a bloc is that if we impose something like ETS, emission trading system, and here we are imposing this on our country, in the domestic territory, so it has a mechanism for domestic industries, and the ambitions embedded in products imported from other countries may not fall under this line or may not come under these sets of line. So what would be the issue? The issue will come in the pricing. Okay, suppose this EU or Germany is producing something with the help of green tech. So of course the product produced in Germany with the sets of green tech would comparatively be dearer than what has been produced in India with the sets of fossil fuel, let us say, or produced in a carbon emitting industry, or it's a carbon intensive product, isn't it? Because green technology, of course, not the cheaper at this level. So of course there would also come the problem in the costing of or the pricing of that particular product. This is actually the point of worry for EU as a bloc. So this EU worry this is what EU worries about. So it would put somewhere its industry as at a disadvantage, of course, because people would like to purchase the cheaper things instead of this dearer ones. Fine. So this seems to be, this will somewhere put the EU industries at a disadvantage. Now to tackle this, the impacted industry in the EU had so far been receiving free allowances or permits under ETS. Fine. So to tackle this, that is let us say dearer products, महंगे product हो रहे हैं because of production cost बढ़ गई है because of green tech. So now the governments in these countries providing, let us say, subsidy or free allowances under the ETS, fine, emission trading system. EU also apprehends the phenomena of carbon leakage. Now this is important. What exactly is the phenomena of carbon leakage? This is due to the application of ETS. European firms operating, let us say, carbon leakage is what here? Here the EU is fears that it might happen that the carbon intensive industry of their or domestic industry of EU bloc, carbon intensive domestic industry of EU might, might open the industry in other countries which has less stringent norms for carbon, this intensive products. So this is again a second point of fear or worry for the EU. In carbon intensive sector might possibly shift to those countries that have less stringent GHG emission, greenhouse gases emission norms. So it is feared that EU industry might or the companies might shift to certain countries, let us say India, where there is a less stringent carbon related rules or norms. So CBM is aimed at, what exactly is the aim of this objective of the CBM? Aimed at addressing this quagmire. Fine. So CBM की जो aim है, that is to what? Address this quagmire. Difficult, a complex situation basically. Quagmire is something which is complex, complexity or difficult situation, and thus leveling the playing field for the EU industries. So of course any country would be concerned about its own industry. So EU is concerned for its own industry, nothing wrong in that. Under the CBM, imports for certain carbon intensive products, namely cement, iron, steel, electricity, fertilizers, aluminum, hydrogen, will have to bear the same economic cost borne by the EU producers under the ETS. Fine. So जो cost bear करते हैं EU के producers under emission trading system in production of those particular product, so the same cost has to be bear by the country of origin of the particular product, let us say Indian exporters, exporting something to the EU or Germany particularly, fine, under the CBM. So you can say CBM, carbon border adjustment mechanism, is something to counter the kind of ETS mechanism that not a counter but in synonymous, let us say in sync with the ETS, but it is for export purposes, fine, or let us say it is for import purposes for Germany, and let us say it will be imposed on the exports of Indian products, which are basically carbon intensive products, fine. So this is how to bridge the gap, fine, in the cost of production and alongside the pricing of that particular product. I hope you got this point. Okay. Moving further, now all about WTO consistency. So how WTO can handle this issue? So a cornerstone principle of WTO law is non-discrimination. You might have come across most favored nation treatment, and to treat foreign made like products as they treat domestic ones. So under this we call it national treatment principle. So of course under this WTO principles, countries cannot discriminate among the products of their own domestic, what has been produced in domestic territory and what they are importing from the other country. So this is what actually WTO prohibits. Fine. So while the CBM design is origin neutral means from which country the product is being exported or imported, in appearance it may in its application. So appearance may it seems to be neutral, origin neutral, but in its application discriminate between goods from different countries on account of inadequate carbon pricing policy. This is what actually we have been discussing throughout the article, that if India has produced some product, let us say, and the product is carbon intensive, so EU is proposing to impose this carbon border adjustment mechanism on the origin of the Indian product, that is on India's exporters. Fine, because you have produced that particular product in your carbon intensive industry. Fine, this is what actually the point is all about. Due to the onerous reporting requirement that importers should be subjected to. So importers should be of course subjected to the reporting of the product they are importing from the other country, let us say a carbon intensive product. So key consideration in all this may be whether carbon intensive products to which the CBM applies are like product, means they are like the same product that has been produced in the domestic territory, or they are the unlike products or not like products. So the rules on non-discrimination would have little application on such a case, that is on non-like products. So if products are liked one, means similar ones, this non-discrimination rules applies, but not applies to the unlike products. Fine, because in polity simple is liked should be treated like and unlike should be treated unlike. Fine, you cannot treat like with by unlike and unlike by like. Fine, the same proposition goes here as well, that like products can be treated fine as like and not like as not like. So this mechanism, rules of non-discrimination of WTO actually would have little application in case of not like or unlike products. Let us say both the countries producing different sets of product. Fine, then it would not apply. Fine, so this is only applicable in case of like products only. Okay, further. So there's something according the debate on CBM reignites. So debate on CBM reignites a long-standing debate. This debate on CBM reignites a long-standing debate, and the debate is related to the international trade laws. Fine, the debate is going on in the international trade law circles, and that debate is that it must process and production method be relevant for comparing products. So the question is whether the process or the production methods is more relevant for comparing the products. So traditionally the answer to the that in WTO jurisprudence has been no. Fine, that must process and production method be relevant for comparing products. So according to WTO, no, this is not relevant. And on that account, as commentators have noted, the CBM violates WTO law for discriminating between EU and foreign products covered by CBM based on the embedded emissions. So this is what the conclusion is, that actually this CBM mechanism of EU basically violates the WTO norms, fine, of non-discrimination. However, even if the EU CBM is discriminatory, let us say, there could be a claim for justifying it under the general exceptions. So there are certain exceptions under GATT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, and under it there is an article called Article 20, which states that measures taken by countries that otherwise violate GATT obligations are permitted if, so there are certain conditions where these exemptions are permitted. Let us say firstly we are saying in this paragraph that this is against the WTO norms, or this is against the principle of non-discrimination, but alongside that we are saying that however this has been permitted under, let us say, GATT Article 20 under certain exemptions, but based on the conditionalities. So what are the conditions one by one? First condition is they fall under one of the listed policy grounds, and first is they must fall under one of the listed policy grounds, and second point is that if they satisfy the requirement of the introductory clause of Article 20 known as SHAPU. SHAPU is something which has been taken in good faith. Fine. So whether they have been taken in good faith or not, fine. Like for example, if the purpose is preserving the environment, mitigating the climate related problems, so it seems to be the policy has been taken in good faith. Fine. This is what this article 2020 talks about. So article 2020 is the conservation of exhaustible natural resources. So this seems to be preserving the exhaustible natural resources, article 2020. One of the listed policy ground under article 2020 is preserving the exhaustible natural resources. Fine. So this could be one of the ground. CBM would fall under this category. However, it is doubtful if it would satisfy the SHAPU, that is taken in good faith or not. Inter alia requires that countries do not apply measures in a manner that results in arbitrary or unjustifiable discrimination between. So it has to, EU has to prove that this measure has been taken in good faith and not to discriminate between the products of different origins. Fine. So this has to be, proved or satisfied by the EU. Then only it could pass the, this norms of or the laws of WTO. Fine. So this article is all about this much. Accordingly, it arbitrarily or unjustifiable discrimination between countries where the same environmental condition exists. So again, it has been labeled that it does discriminate between the countries where the same environmental condition exists. And finally, we can say CBM is also an important issue in the ongoing India-EU free trade agreement. Of course, we are negotiating this EU and India free trade agreement from the last few years. So this, of course, is very, very important, a bone of contention under this agreement or negotiations, because India has to, work with the EU to secure gains on CBM and ensure smooth onboarding for Indian exporters to maximize the benefit of bilateral deal. Otherwise, it might, cripple our exports as well. Even as the possibility of WTO challenge remains open, even we can approach the WTO as well in case you not listens to our request. Fine, because every country is independent to take the measures in its own interest. Fine. So this all about this article, my friends. This is very, very good. Of course, one of the articles application, of course, important for the GS3 part. Now let us shift to the miscellaneous news, which might be important for the prelims exam point of view. So let us quickly glance to this miscellaneous news or facts. So one by one. Okay. Now this is important one. Law Commission meets Uttarakhand UCC team. Now UCC. So Article 44 of India's DPSP under Part 4, Article 36 to 51. And in between we have one article, Article 44 states that the state shall endeavor to secure UCCC to all its citizens throughout the territory of India, that we need to have uniform civil code, fine, for all the citizens of the country. So what happened, Uttarakhand has constituted a committee under Justice Ranjana Prakash Desai, RP Desai, and she was also the chairperson of the delimitation commission that delimited the constituency in the Jammu and Kashmir, remember. Fine. So they have actually made the chairperson and members of law commission, fine, and currently the chairperson of this India's law commission is Justice Ritu Raj Avasthi, fine, and there are 3 members. Fine. So this is what, because they met, because both of them are working, even law commission is contemplating to come up with its directions or suggestions or recommendations to the government related to the UCC. Fine. So this topic is very, very important, my friends. If you can track this through the polity side as well, because you can see the current establishment, the current government has one of its agenda is the UCC. I have given the hint, now it's your duty to keep tap on this topic. Fine. Okay. Moving ahead, quickly some miscellaneous facts related to the prelims or the contextual importance that could have for the exams. Okay. So further, fine, moving to the next pages. This is how the things we need to find out, what to read, what to leave. Okay. Further. Okay. So this is again important information that the new guidelines has been released by, let us say, this UGC for the deemed universities, and that has been based on the light but tight, says UGC chairman. Okay, so this new guidelines has been based on a policy measure, we call it, or regulation, policy regulation mechanism, we call it light but tight. Fine, that कम से कम कानून होने चाहिए, कम से कम measures होनी चाहिए for this और the guidelines होने चाहिए, but they should be light, light हो but साथ में tight हो. Fine, it's not about number, it's about the quality. Lesser number of laws, but that should be stringent ones, in regulatory, let us say, applications. So let us see quickly. Higher education institutions that are less than 20 years old will also be eligible to apply for getting the tag of what? Deemed universities. Fine. So quickly, let us have a look at this few important sets. So Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan, जो है हमारे education minister, said that the center's plan to encourage universities to focus on quality and excellence, strengthen the research and ecosystem, have a long-term impact and transforming the higher education landscape. The University Grants Commission Regulation 2023 replaces the UGC deemed university regulation of 2029. So remember here a fact is this new 2023 regulation is going to replace the regulations of 2019 of the UGC, fine, related to the deemed universities. First point. Secondly, according to Honorable Minister, the regulations will facilitate creation of many more quality focused deemed universities, universities in an objective and transparent manner. This is basically said by the UGC current chairman, Professor Jagdesh Kumar. Said the regulations were in tune with the national education policy of 2020 which were light but tight. So this is in sync with the national education policy, which is based on light but tight policy regulations. Fine, light but tight, remember. So these are the hopeful, and they are hopeful that this will bring major change in the multidisciplinary field in India's. So under the 2019 guidelines, the higher education institutions having existence for not less than 20 years were eligible. So the major changes here in 2019 guidelines, less than 20 years eligibility was not applicable, but in this case, the universities which are having existence for even less than 20 years would be eligible to apply for getting the deemed university status. However, the revised guidelines have now replaced it with the multidisciplinary NAC grading, NIRF ranking and NBA grading. Fine. So these are the certain sets of grading or ranking in India. Important. Fine. So the eligibility criteria to apply for deemed to be university status is NAC A grade with at least 3.0 CGPA for 3 consecutive cycles of NBA accreditation. So these are the conditionalities important for as far as this technical part of this statement is concerned, and for 2/3 of the eligible programs for 3 consecutive cycles or in the top 50 of any specific category of national institution ranking framework, or for the last 3 years continuously, or in top 100 of overall NIRF ranking, or for last 3 years continuously. Fine. So these are the conditionalities which we need to read, or basically this eligibility has been lowered. Even less than 20 years universities can apply for this tag deemed to be universities, but based on certain conditionalities, based on NAC ranking, based on their the 2/3 of eligible programs for 3 consecutive cycles and so on. Fine. So this again an important miscellaneous, you can say, or important from the governance angle. Fine. Now moving forward, let us check it out. Is there any other important thing for the day or not? So okay, so this is just a passing reference that no Ukraine truce without Russian pullback. It has been said by the State Secretary of the US, Mr. Blinken. So just this much is sufficient, just a passing reference that what exactly is going on that front. Okay, now important one we need to discuss is Insurance Regulatory Development Authority of India is eyeing to insurance push in rural areas with Bima Wahak. Fine, and this has been pushed under its insurance for all by 2027 goal. Fine, insurance for all by 2047. When we are marking the 100 years of our independence. So publishes draft guidelines on the dedicated distribution channel primarily comprising women to cater to insurance needs in villages, that is rural areas, insurance could tailor plans to meet financial protection needs. So the focus is on boosting insurance access in the rural areas, and these draft norms for the Bima Wahak scheme are aimed at improving last mile connectivity to raise rural insurance penetration or the access. So this is very, very important. Fine. So under the scheme, Bima Wahaks will gain the trust of the locals for distribution or insurance products. Fine. So Bima Wahaks, insurers will have to implement a board approval policy in hiring and training Bima Wahaks. So Bima Wahaks would be, acting like BCs, that is banking correspondents, fine, or the banking mitras. So they will be important, intermediaries in enhancing the access to, insurance basically in the rural areas, or enhancing the increasing the penetration of insurance in the rural areas, that is Bharat. Fine. Okay. So this is what under its remember the policy, that is insurance for all by 2047. So under its this insurance for all by 2047, this is one of the major goal of IRDA to provide universal access to insurance to the rural masses of population. Fine. So again, important information or important set of policy tool for us. Then RBI issues draft on cyber security for PSOs. PSOs are basically the payment payment system operators, fine, like Paytm and all. So RBI has just issued a draft guidelines for cyber safety, cyber security, fine. If they are just a draft guidelines, it will finally placed in public after discussions and suggestions. So we'll keep tap on this as well, fine. Okay, I think we have finished all the important topics for the day. Yes, yes. So that's it from my side. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay tuned for the next, the Mondays, the Hindu analysis. Fine. Thank you so much. Until then, take care and keep revising the same. Fine. Okay.